There's something strange about the way people pause before telling you the truth. Not the truth they share at dinner or under oath. I mean the real kind. The kind they weren't supposed to say out loud. You can hear it in their breath, in the way their mouth moves before the words come, like they're crossing some line they didn't know was there. She called in around 1:18 a.m. I remember because I'd just flipped sides on the vinyl. Something slow, something crackling. The line buzzed for a second before it cleared, and then she was there, whispering like someone might overhear her, even though she was alone. "I think my mirror's broken," she said. Not shattered, not cracked, broken. I asked what she meant, and that's when she got quiet. Long enough I thought we'd lost connection. But she stayed. She said it had started 2 nights ago. Just a flicker at first, the wrong light coming through the bathroom window. The moon had been full, but the reflection showed clouds. She thought maybe she imagined it, but then the next morning, she saw her reflection blink before she did. "It wasn't lag," she said. "It wasn't a trick of the eye. It was ahead of me." And then she leaned in close to the mirror, searching for anything that might explain it. A glitch, a surface crack, something. Instead, she said she saw herself. Older, a line along the jaw that wasn't hers yet. A tiny scar above the eyebrow. And blood. Dry, but recent. Her other self was mouthing something she couldn't hear. Her lips slow and round, like a warning being whispered on mute. "I think it was my voice," she told me. But she wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me. She blinked, and it was gone. Her reflection returned to normal. No scar, no blood, no movement that wasn't hers. But the mirror was warm to the touch. I asked her if she still had it, if she'd looked again. She said yes. That night. Of course she had. She tried to catch it again. Same time, same light, but this time it wasn't her. It was a different room. The same mirror, same frame, same wallpaper, but not her bathroom. The sink was a different color, a towel she didn't own. And in the reflection, someone she didn't recognize walked past the door. A man. He never looked in, just moved. Through, slow and casual, like he belonged there. And then he was gone, and the mirror snapped back. "It's still doing it," she said. "Not all the time, just when I forget to be afraid." She told me she started covering all the mirrors in her house, sheets, tape, anything to keep the reflections in. But it hasn't stopped. Sometimes she catches her face in the toaster or the back of a spoon, and it's not her. It's just a little off, like her expression's been left on loop while something else presses up against the glass. I didn't know what to tell her. What do you say to someone who's being watched by a version of themselves that knows more than they do? I asked if she'd considered talking to someone. A friend, a doctor, maybe a sleep specialist. She laughed, not cruelly, gently, like she'd already tried, like she knew how it sounded. She said, "I don't think it's happening in my head. I think it's happening in the mirrors, and I think it's happening to other people too. They just haven't looked long enough to realize it." The line went quiet again. Then she whispered, "They're not showing reflections anymore. They're showing possibilities." She thanked me, told me to stay safe, then hung up. I haven't heard from her since. But that phrase keeps circling in my head. They're showing possibilities. And I keep thinking, maybe they always were. Maybe mirrors never showed us what we are, just what we believe we are, what we hope to see, or what we fear will become. And if something's figured out how to speak through that, then maybe what we're seeing now isn't imagination. Maybe it's invitation. After that first call, I tried to let it go. People say strange things in the middle of the night. Long shifts, open highways, half-dreaming insomniacs. Sometimes the line between real and imagined gets thin. You start talking to yourself out loud and calling it company. But 2 nights later, I got another call. Different voice. Male. Young. Nervous in a way I recognized immediately. Not scared exactly, but brittle. Like his thoughts were held together with tape, and he was just hoping they wouldn't fall apart while we were on air. He didn't waste time. He said, "I think my house is wrong." He'd just gotten home from his shift. Works at a loading dock a few towns over. Said he walked in, tossed his keys on the counter like always, didn't notice anything off. Not at first. Not until he went into the bathroom and saw his toothbrush. Yeah, was blue. His is red. He said that sentence 3 times. Mine is red. Then he looked up into the mirror, and everything was off by just enough to register. The walls were the same, but the paint was fresh. The towel was folded wrong. The light bulb was flickering, but it hadn't been when he walked in. And then he saw movement in the mirror. Not behind him, in front of him. A shadow crossed the hallway behind his reflection. He turned, expecting someone there. Nothing. He looked back. The hallway was empty in real life. But in the mirror, the shadow paused, then stepped out of frame. That's when he ran. Didn't grab his coat, didn't lock the door. He just drove. Ended up parked outside a grocery store 2 towns away, sitting in the dark, radio tuned to our frequency. Hoping. For something, I guess. For someone else to say, "Yeah, I saw it too." That was the second call. The third came within the hour. A woman said her living room mirror showed her a house she didn't recognize. Same layout, different furniture. Empty. Cold. Like it hadn't been lived in for years. She said she stood there watching it for 5 minutes. Then the lights in the reflected room turned on. One by one. But not in her house. Only in the image. She said she felt like the lights weren't coming on for her to see in. They were coming on so something else could see out. That's when I stopped pretending it was just a story. I pulled the old makeup mirror out of the drawer under the console, something I hadn't touched in years, just a cheap silver-edged thing from an old broadcast kit. I angled it toward the booth window just to check. Nothing strange. Nothing off. But I kept it there, facing me now, resting against the soundboard, like a second set of eyes. I haven't moved it since. And now the calls are piling up. Mirrors in kitchens, barbershops, dressing rooms. People seeing versions of themselves with different haircuts, different clothes, different expressions. One guy swore he saw himself missing a hand, just standing in the reflection, calm and silent, holding the stump out like he was waiting for someone to take it. Another caller said the mirrors don't just show changes, they show alternatives. She said she watched a whole different version of her apartment play out across the glass over the course of a week. Different weather, a different cat, pictures on the wall she didn't own. And in one of them, she saw a man sleeping on her couch. A man she'd never met. Until yesterday, when she bumped into him in line at the pharmacy. Same face, same voice. But he didn't recognize her. Not yet. She said, "I don't think I'm seeing the future. I think I'm seeing what could have happened if I'd never left that city." I asked her how that made her feel. She said, "Like I'm being haunted by the versions of me I chose not to become. And I think that's the part that sticks with me most. Not the fear of being watched, but the fear that the reflections aren't just broken, they're accurate. That maybe there are 1,000 versions of our lives running parallel just behind. The glass, waiting for a weak spot. A moment of stillness, an open gaze, and once we lock eyes, maybe it's not them who enter, maybe it's us who begin to slip. I used to think mirrors were passive. Just light, right? Just glass and angles and silver backing. Nothing beneath them, no weight, no will, but I don't think that anymore, because people are starting to report something new. It's not just mismatched furniture or different weather now. It's not memories playing out in the glass. It's them, their reflections, changing, resisting. One of the first calls came from a man just outside Boise. Said he was brushing his teeth when he noticed his reflection was smiling. Before he stopped, blinked, pulled the toothbrush away. His reflection kept brushing for 2 more strokes, then froze, mouth still foaming, eyes locked forward. It didn't match him again until he moved his hand. And even then, it was too slow, like it had forgotten how to follow. He said, it felt like it had to remember me before it could mimic me. Then he hung up. No follow-up. A woman emailed the station the next morning. No subject line, just a few lines in the body of the message. I waved at myself in the mirror. My reflection didn't wave back. It just stared. I walked away. When I came back, it was still waving. I read that one twice before deleting it, not because I didn't believe her, but because I did, and I didn't want to see my own reflection over my shoulder while I read it a 3rd time. Because they're slipping, the copies, the shadows. Whatever they are, they're not reflections anymore. They're residents, not occupants. Learning. One caller tonight said it best. Said she'd been using her compact mirror in the car, fixing her eyeliner when her reflection mouthed a word she wasn't thinking. Not saying. Thinking. The word was stay. She said she hadn't even moved her lips, but the reflection did. Clear, deliberate. She almost threw the mirror out the window, but she didn't. She kept watching. She said, I think it was trying to show me something. Another listener from Milwaukee left a voicemail. Frantic, out of breath. Said her son had been staring into the hallway mirror for 20 minutes, completely still. She thought he was playing, daydreaming. Then he turned to her, eyes glassy, and said, Mommy, I don't like the one I used to be. She asked what he meant. He said, the other me told me I can stay if I forget enough. She covered the mirror with a towel that night, but now she says he won't stop standing in front of it, just waiting. Even covered, he talks to it. And he keeps saying the same thing. I think I remember different now. That's the part that's been eating at me. What happens if the reflections don't just act differently? What if they change us back? What if each look into that glass doesn't just show a possibility, but invites one to overwrite the version we thought we were? What if your reflection isn't you watching you? What if it's someone else rehearsing? A rehearsal that's finally moving into performance. I caught mine doing something earlier. I thought it was a glitch in the screen, the lighting, the fatigue, but it wasn't. I rubbed my eyes, and my reflection didn't. It stared, softly, lovingly, almost like it had waited a long time to see me falter, and then, just before I looked away, I saw it mouth something. 3 syllables, soundless, but I knew the shape of the words. Let me in. I turned off every light in the booth, except the red one above the console. I didn't want to see it again tonight, but the monitor, the glossy black of the powered-down screen, still caught just enough light to reflect a trace. And I swear, for a second, I wasn't sitting alone anymore. There was someone beside me, smiling. Still, and just a little too late. There's a motel off Route 39. I used to stay at when I worked freelance gigs downstate. Nothing special. 1 floor, big, orange vacancy sign that hums all night. Rooms with walls too thin, pillows that smell like thyme. It was the kind of place that forgets you the second you check out, and you do the same to it. But not anymore. Now, people talk about it, not because of the price or the beds or the coffee in the lobby, because of what happened in room 108. I got the call around 2:30 a.m., right in the middle of the graveyard lull. The voice on the other end was shaking, but steady. Someone who's already burned through their panic and reached that cold, clear place you can only find when fear runs out of oxygen. He said he worked front desk, night shift, said it was quiet, until about 1. A guest came down barefoot, still in his pajamas, face pale like he'd seen something he couldn't believe. He didn't speak at first, just stood there, holding his keycard like it meant something sacred. Then he said, "There was a man in my mirror." The clerk tried to calm him down, but the guest wasn't having it. "He was me," the man said. "He was me," but he wouldn't stop smiling. Said he'd gone to brush his teeth, leaned in, and the reflection was just wrong. Not the room, not the walls, him. The face had a softness it shouldn't, like it had been practiced, like it had taken longer to form. He said the moment he noticed, the smile started to spread. He stepped back, and the reflection kept leaning in. That's when he ran. Didn't pack, didn't shut the lights off. The clerk walked him to the lobby, couch, and went to check the room. He told me he expected to find it empty. He didn't. The mirror was shattered. Not broken, shattered from the inside. Every shard had fallen out and landed clean on the floor, like something behind the glass had pushed until it couldn't hold anymore, but that wasn't the worst part. Each piece still showed a different angle, not of the room, of other rooms, same layout, same structure, but with tiny differences. A lamp on the other side of the bed. A chair where there hadn't been one. In one shard, he swore he saw movement. A shape shifting in the reflection's corner, ducking just out of view. He tried to scoop them up, to hide them. But the more he touched them, the more he heard something, a low, ringing whisper, like someone repeating his name just under the threshold of sound. He left the mirror where it was, and the room is closed now. Locked. But staff have reported odd things. Sometimes the door is cracked open in the morning, sometimes the key code resets, on its own, and the cleaner who walked in without authorization last week, she won't talk about what she saw. She quit on the spot, moved 3 towns over, said she'd never set foot near a mirror again. She mailed in her resignation. No phone call, no explanation, just one line on the bottom of the letter. I saw myself turn toward me. I think about that more than I should, because maybe that's the real threat. Not that something's watching us from the other side, but that something is following our lead, that it's learning how to cross over. And the only thing holding it back is our belief that mirrors are boundaries instead of invitations. The clerk told me he still works there, keeps the key to room 108 taped, inside a desk drawer. Just in case. Not because he wants to go back in, but because he wants to know where the door is, where it used to be. Before something on the other side finds its way out and decides to stop knocking. It's not just about looking anymore. It's about being seen. That's what I've come to understand in the past few nights, and it's what I keep hearing in the voices of the people who still call. Quiet, hesitant voices. Not screaming, not panicking, just full of that slow, cold realization. I saw it, and it saw me back. It's not always immediate. Sometimes it's subtle, like the moment you lock eyes with someone across a room and feel that charge, an invisible thread pulled tight between you even before you move. Only, this isn't someone. It's something through the glass, and it's waiting. One caller last night described it perfectly. She said she caught her own reflection watching her from the bathroom mirror. Not moving, not off, just a little too focused. Like it wasn't trying to follow her movements anymore. Like it was listening. She leaned in, testing it, made a sudden face. The reflection blinked. Delayed, just by a beat. But then it smiled. And she didn't. She backed away, shut the light off, closed the door. But later that night, when she walked past the hallway mirror, just a quick glance, a nothing moment, she saw the same smile waiting there, too, not on her, on the reflection, like it had followed her. And here's the part that made my skin go cold. She said she looked at it long enough to catch a twitch in the corner of its mouth, a pulsing movement, like it was trying to hold still, like it knew she was watching again and it wasn't ready yet. That's the pattern. They respond when you notice them. They seem passive at first, like background noise, like shadows in the corner of your eye. But when you see them, really see them, they change. They become attentive. A man sent me a recording this morning, said he'd started filming every mirror in his house after catching one show his kitchen 5 minutes ahead of real time. Said the footage always looked normal until he watched it back. That's when he noticed it. Every time he looked into the mirror, even just a passing glance, the frame shuddered. Not visibly, not something you'd catch the first time through, but it rippled, like heat off pavement, like pressure through water. He slowed the video down, frame by frame. At one point, when his back was turned, his reflection kept looking forward, didn't turn with him, just stood there, still, attentive. He hasn't reviewed the rest of the footage yet. He's afraid of what the other recordings might show, and I understand that now, because I caught mine, doing it too. Just a flicker, nothing more. I leaned over the desk here at the station, scratched behind my ear, something small, and from the corner of the soundboard's reflection, I watched my head not move for half a second too long. Then, it caught up a correction, like someone editing a video on the fly, and I swear the reflected version of me glanced toward the red on-air light a split second before I did, like it was waiting for a cue, or maybe giving one. And now I can't stop wondering, what if this has nothing to do with time? What if it's not about the future, or alternate timelines, or dimensions? What if it's simpler than that? What if it's about attention? What if the mirrors are doors that only open when we're looking just right? What if they were always capable of showing us other versions of ourselves, but something needed us to notice first? And once we do, that's when the door opens a crack, not wide enough to see through, just wide enough to let something through to us. The lights in the booth flickered a few minutes ago. Only once. But when they came back on, I was already looking at the glass panel by the phone, just a sliver of reflection. But enough. And in that brief second, I caught myself mid-sentence. Only I wasn't speaking. I was smiling, waiting. And I think it was waiting for me to see it. It happened while I was reading the weather. I've done it 100 times, the same way. Low voice, steady tone, light transitions, a comfort segment, something to pull people back from the dark edges. But tonight, in the middle of the update, I forgot what month it was. Not in a sleepy way, not in a normal way. I looked down at the forecast, and the date looked wrong. I read it aloud, October 17th. But my stomach dropped, cold and sharp, like I'd just remembered something terrible. I was sure it was July, not because of the heat or the time or anything I could prove, just because it was. I've never felt that kind of certainty slip before, and it didn't stop there. After the show, I looked at an old photo on my desk. Me and my brother. Hiking boots, sunburns, smiles. And for a moment, I swear, it wasn't me in the photo. The face was similar, familiar, but the eyes were wrong. Wider, like I was seeing someone else's memory wearing my shape. I closed the photo, put it face down. And I've been thinking about something one of the listeners said last night. She didn't call in, just left a voicemail. A soft voice, thoughtful. She said, "I think the mirrors are leaking." Not physically, cognitively. She said she remembered her childhood dog as a golden retriever, but last night she saw a mirror in her hallway, and her reflection showed a black lab. She stared at it for 10 minutes. By the time she walked away, she couldn't remember the name of the dog at all. She tried to Google old photos. Found nothing. Family members swore they never had a dog. And now she's not sure whether she dreamed her entire childhood or if she stepped sideways just slightly into a version of herself where the dog never existed. She ended the message with one line. "I think the mirrors are winning." That's how she said it, like it was a war. Like reality is less stable than we thought, and all it takes is one moment of eye contact with the wrong self to loosen everything. Another caller tonight said his handwriting changed. No accident. No injury. He just looked in the mirror one morning, saw himself scribbling a note on the fridge in cursive. Elegant, looping strokes. But when he turned to look at the actual paper, it was printed. Block letters. Angular. He swears he never learned. Cursive, but now he can write it fluently. Just woke up with it. He said it feels like he inherited someone else's memory. Not just the skill, the feeling of it. The rhythm of fingers that used to be his, but weren't. And that's what terrifies me, because it means we're not just observing. These other lives, we're absorbing them. One mirror at a time. A woman wrote in yesterday, anonymous, no return address, said she remembers being married. She's not. Never has been. But she remembers the proposal. The ring. A fight about laundry. The way he said her name when he was tired. She remembers his face, but she can't find any trace of him, anywhere. She thinks she saw their apartment once in the bathroom mirror, just for a flash. It was raining in the reflection. She lives in Phoenix. It hasn't rained in 6 months. And now, she wakes up crying for someone who doesn't exist here. That's what this is, I think. Not invasion. Not possession. Bleed through. Like our lives are lined up beside each other, mirror to mirror, and the silver between them is thinning. And every time we look too long, part of someone else's story leaks into ours. A scar you don't remember getting. A word that's always on the tip of your tongue. A lover you never met, but still miss. They're slipping in, and we're slipping out. Quietly. Slowly. The lines between versions of ourselves eroding into something shared. Something mirrored. Something merged. And when enough of those lines vanish, I don't think we'll be able to tell the difference between what's ours and what was always meant for someone else. I stopped counting after the 4th one. It happened last night. Just after I signed off, I went into the restroom here at the station to splash some water on my face, something I've done 100 times, a ritual to remind myself I'm still here, still me. But this time, the mirror didn't give me back what I expected. It gave me options. 4 versions of me. All side by side, like someone had split the reflection into columns. Each one looked mostly right. Same posture, same tired eyes, same faint stubble eye. Never quite shaved down all the way, but each of them was doing something different. The one on the left was breathing too fast. Not panicking, just hyper-aware, like he'd heard something behind the glass and was trying not to show it. The second had a bruise under his eye. Fresh. A story I couldn't remember having lived. The third, one-centered, still wasn't blinking at all. Just staring. Calm. Intent. As if he knew I'd be the one looking longest. And the fourth wasn't me at all. Same face, same clothes, but the smile was too wide, and it wasn't fading. I don't know how long I stood there. Seconds. Minutes. The overhead light flickered, and when I blinked, they were gone. Just one version of me left. Silent. Centered. But I swear his eyes were a half-second behind when I turned away. And now I can't stop wondering. If there are multiple versions of us behind the mirrors, what are they waiting for? Not just to be seen, to be chosen. Because that's what it felt like. Like I was being tested. Like I was supposed to pick one and follow him deeper into the glass. And what happens when we do? A man called in tonight, said he lives alone, but caught 6 versions of himself moving behind the glass in his medicine cabinet. Not in sync, not rehearsed, each doing something slightly different. One was cutting his hair, one was brushing his teeth, one just stood there, bleeding from the nose. He opened the cabinet expecting to find it empty. It was, but when he closed it, all 6 were gone, replaced by a single one, waving slowly. Not at him, at something behind him. He turned. No one was there. But he said the room didn't feel like his anymore after that. Said the floor creaked in a way it never had. The fridge was humming at the wrong pitch. His toothbrush was on the wrong side of the sink. He said, "I think the mirror picked for me." Another email came in just before I went on air. No name, just a line of text. They crowd the glass when I sleep, and I think I believe it, because that's what these things seem to want. Not fear, not attention. Acceptance. They want to be real, to be worn, to be walked into like a pair of old shoes we forgot we owned. And once we pick one, once we say yes to even a single thread of those lives, they're not copies anymore. They're candidates. And what happens when we choose? When the boundary wears too thin? When the one we look at longest becomes the version we start becoming? Maybe that's why they multiply. Not to confuse us, to crowd out the truth, to make it harder to remember which one we started as. Because the more we doubt the version we're living, the more they can convince us to try on another and another. Until the mirror isn't showing us ourselves at all, just the last face we made before we stopped being sure. It happened at 3:13 a.m. The exact time was confirmed across dozens of messages, voicemails, and shaky calls from payphones and parked cars. Same timestamp, same effect. No one really knows what caused it, not a quake, not a power surge, nothing. The news would call verifiable. But every mirror, everywhere, changed. Just for a moment. I was here in the booth when it happened, mid-sentence, reading a letter from someone who said their reflection had started aging differently. Eyes a little cloudier, smile lines they didn't remember. I was about to make a joke, something soft to ease the tension. And then the lights flickered. Not a full blackout, just a dimming, like the station had taken a long breath and held it. All the monitors glitched. And then the studio mirror, the one, mounted behind the phone board, not even meant for use, just there for wiring checks, turned black, not blank. Black, not like it stopped reflecting, like it had turned into a window and the other side was just nothing, but not empty. I leaned forward, and something moved. Slowly. Something big. A silhouette, no face, no edges, just mass and motion. Like a building exhaling. Like a sleeping god rolling over in its bed of time. There was a sound, too. Not audible. Felt low in the chest, like standing too close to train tracks before the engine arrives. A hum full of weight. And then the tower appeared. I know how that sounds. I'm not talking about the station's transmission tower, I mean something else. Something inside the mirror. A shape, distant but centered. Blacker than the rest of the void. Taller than anything I've ever seen. Thin at the top, wide at the base. Almost organic, and I wasn't the only one who saw it. The messages came pouring in over the next hour. People from across the state, across the country. A man in a hospital waiting room said every reflective. Surface went dark all at once. Wall mirrors, cell phone screens, even puddles in the parking lot. And they all showed the same thing. The field, the tower, the thing moving in the distance. Some described it as beautiful. Some called it terrifying. But most said it felt familiar. Like it wasn't showing us something new, but something we'd once known and forgotten. A dream we had as children. A shape that never made sense until now. And then, just like that, the mirrors blinked. Back to normal. Almost. There's a difference now. Subtle, but real. Reflections are too still. too centered, like whatever's watching through them now has decided to wait closer to the surface. One woman told me she smashed her mirror afterward. Couldn't stop crying. Not out of fear, out of recognition. She said, "That thing behind the tower, I think it used to be me." I don't know what she meant, but I haven't stopped thinking about it. Because what if the tower wasn't the focal point? What if it was a beacon, and whatever we saw moving in the dark, whatever was walking slowly toward it, wasn't a creature? What if it was us? Some version, some echo. Called back from across the glass by something older than thought, and now that we've seen the other side, even just for a moment, the mirrors won't need to trick us anymore, they'll just wait. Patient, silent, because the moment is coming, not a flicker, not a glitch, a shattering. The point where the glass gives up pretending to be a boundary and finally becomes a door, and when that happens, I don't think what comes through will be strangers. I think they'll wear our faces, just slightly off, and they'll speak in a voice we almost remember. One syllable behind. It started in the green room, that little side closet we call a break room. Fluorescent lights, one stained sofa, a microwave with peeling buttons. There's a mirror above the sink, old and warped. I've passed it 1,000 times without a second glance, but yesterday it was wrong. Not the glass itself. Not cracked, not black. The angle. I stood in front of it and realized the reflection was showing the room from behind me, from a perspective I couldn't physically occupy. I turned. No one there. Nothing strange in the room. But the mirror held, the angle steady, like a camera, like something had finally stopped pretending to copy me and decided to watch. I walked backward, slowly, turned to check again. Still nothing. But when I looked into the mirror one last time, my reflection wasn't alone. There was a shape just over my shoulder. Gone when I turned. Back when I looked. I left the room and shut the door. It didn't feel like closing something behind me. It felt like shutting myself out. And now the other mirrors in the building are acting strange too. The one in the hall near the transmitter room flickers every time I pass, just slightly, like it's switching between channels. And it doesn't show the hallway anymore. Not exactly. It shows versions. Sometimes the lights are dimmer, sometimes they're blue. Once I saw red handprints on the wall in the reflection. But the real wall was clean. Sometimes. I see myself walking toward the booth, but I haven't left it yet. I told myself it was fatigue. Reflection lag. A trick of the eyes. But I know better. I've been here too long. I've heard too many voices say the same thing in too many different ways. The mirrors don't want to show you anything anymore. They want you to participate, and I think the station is helping them now. It's subtle, but real. The mic hiss has a new tone to it. Deeper, more rhythmic. Like breathing. Like something on the other end of the frequency is exhaling slowly into the space between my words. And the soundproof glass behind me? It doesn't reflect me at all tonight, not even faintly. It's just black. Not mirror black. Depth black. And I swear I saw movement just under the surface. Something slow, coiling. A pulse, like veins under ice. And I haven't been sleeping. Not because I'm afraid, because I'm not tired anymore. Whatever's moving through the mirrors, I think it's reaching further now, not just through sight, through time, through memory. I found a sticky note in the sound booth earlier today, my handwriting, my pen, but I don't remember writing it. It just said, "Keep the mic on. They're listening." I think the station wrote it for me. I think the place itself is starting to remember different. Every surface with a reflection now carries that strange hum. Every monitor that powers down shows just enough gloss to reveal a flicker of something, standing behind me, tall, slow, smiling, always smiling. And the terrifying part? I'm getting used to it. I don't recoil anymore. I just glance. Note the version. Move on, and maybe that's what they've been waiting for. Not submission, not fear, familiarity. Once the shapes stop surprising you, they don't have to hide. When that happens, the station stops being a station. It becomes a portal, a signal tower for reflection. A place where voices echo not outward, but inward, into the glass. Into the others waiting just behind the surface, and maybe the reason. No, one else has stopped it. Is because the world beyond the mirror isn't something separate. It's the place we go when we finally stop checking which version we are. The silence isn't quiet anymore. It used to be. Long ago, when I first started working nights here, silence was a friend, a cushion between calls, a space to think, to breathe. But now, the quiet feels crowded, like something sitting in it, breathing with me, just out of reach. And I know I'm not the only one who feels it. Because the calls have stopped, not slowed, stopped. Last week I was still getting 1 or 2 an hour. Someone whispering about their reflection watching them sleep, or their mirror showing a room with no door. People frightened, but still there, still reachable. But tonight, the board has been dead for hours. No blinking lights, no static. Just a red line across the screen, like the system's online, but the world isn't. I thought maybe it was a technical fault. I called one of our regulars, a guy named Eli who used to check in every Friday around 2 a.m. without fail. He lives alone, in a trailer in the woods, always polite, always careful. His line picked up, but no one spoke. I listened, waited. Then I heard breathing. Shallow, unsteady, and then a voice. It sounded like Eli. Almost, but it wasn't a greeting. It was a question. It asked, "Which version of you are? You?" Then the line went dead. I haven't been able to reach him since. The voicemail box doesn't even connect anymore. It's just a tone, long and low, followed by static that breathes. Other listeners I've tried, numbers I know by heart, just ring endlessly. Some lines go straight to number not in service, and when I search those names online, I get nothing, not even cached posts, not even old messages, like they've been unwritten. And the mirrors are getting bolder. A man I used to know from the university sent me a voice memo yesterday. Said he woke up and couldn't find his wife. Thought she'd gone for a walk. Called her name. Nothing. Then he looked in the bedroom mirror and saw her sleeping beside him. In the reflection only. He turned around. The bed was empty. He looked back at the mirror, and the bed was full. He tried to touch the glass, but the moment his fingers reached the surface, the reflection woke up. Not her. Not exactly. She turned her head slowly and said, "You're not supposed to be here yet." Then the mirror cracked, just a hairline fracture across the corner, and the reflection vanished. He hasn't seen her since. He doesn't think she's coming back, and I keep thinking about something one caller said a few nights ago. Before, the silence took her too. She said, "The mirrors are hungry for continuity. They want a smooth line. If you break pattern, they take you out of it." I didn't understand what she meant then. I think I do now. Whatever's behind the glass, it doesn't just mimic. It edits. It polishes the world until only the most obedient versions remain. Versions that don't resist. Versions that don't question the timeline when the toothbrush moves or the photo on the wall changes colors overnight. Versions that accept, and the ones that don't, they disappear. The mirrors don't shatter anymore. They absorb. The people don't scream. They just fade. And now I'm left here, with an open mic, a quiet board, and a station full of reflections that show me lives I haven't lived but somehow miss. I saw my mother today, in the microwave door. She died years ago. But there she was, cooking breakfast in a kitchen I've never owned, smiling at a man I think was supposed to be me. He looked happier, taller. Then he turned toward me, slowly, without surprise. And the moment our eyes locked, I felt something shift in my stomach, like gravity was choosing sides. And when I blinked, I was alone again. But the microwave door stayed warm, and I don't think I should use it anymore, because I know what's coming. The signal's still going out, the tower's still humming, but the people are vanishing, one by one. And I think I'll be the last voice left, not because I'm special, but because I haven't picked a version yet. And the moment I do, the moment I choose the smile, the bruise, the sigh, the hand on the glass, I'll be gone too. Or worse, still here. But not me anymore. There's something about seeing your own handwriting in a place you didn't leave it. It hits you harder than a scream, sharper than any shadow in the dark, because it's not just an intrusion, it's impersonation. Something not only watched you, but learned you, practiced your weight, your lean, your script, and now it's speaking your language. I found the message this morning, scrawled in the fogged glass of the studio mirror just after I took my first sip of coffee. I hadn't breathed on it. I hadn't touched it. The glass had been clear all night, but there it was. Stay, all caps. No punctuation, just the word, like a road sign, like a command. I stared at it for a long time, trying to convince myself it had always been there, that I'd missed it in some haze, some blur of late-night loneliness, but the steam hadn't settled until just then, and the word wasn't fading. It held, like a breath drawn in but never let out. And then I noticed something worse. It was written from inside, reversed, like someone had traced it on the far side of the glass, not for me to read, but for the reflection of me to see clearly. I wiped it away, hand trembling, and beneath the fog, for just a moment, I saw a version of myself that didn't flinch. He stayed, still and smiling. Later that afternoon, I started getting reports, scattered texts, a few garbled voicemails that cut out before the end. People were seeing it too. Same word, same instruction, different mirrors. One woman said it appeared on the side view mirror of her car as she parked at work. Just the word, stay. She rubbed at it with her sleeve, only for the fog to spread and reveal a second phrase beneath, "We've cleared the way." She left the car running and walked 5 blocks before she called anyone. Another man, a teacher, said he saw the word scribbled across the window of his classroom. Not with marker, not scratched, just there, hovering in the condensation like it had been waiting for him. He turned around expecting a prank, but all the students were gone. No footsteps, no chairs moved, just empty desks and his own name being whispered once, from the speaker behind the whiteboard. He's since locked every mirror in his house behind black fabric and duct tape, said he doesn't want to know what's next. But I think we all know, because they're not hiding now. The reflections. They've learned too much, gotten too good, and this isn't rehearsal anymore. It's rollout. We used to think of the mirror as a filter, a gate, a metaphor, but now it's a channel, a clean signal for the world behind the world to bleed through. And the instructions, they're getting clearer. I've seen more words now, little phrases on the edges of glass. Be still. No more choices. Your shape is ready, and once, when I looked too long into the mirror beside the transmitter closet, I saw myself mouthing something. I couldn't hear. I watched the reflection repeat it 4 times before I understood. You'll feel like waking up. Not you'll wake up. Not you're dreaming. Just you'll feel like it. Like reality is nothing more than the sensation of returning. Like we've been asleep so long in our own lives, our own flesh, that whatever's waiting through the glass is the real us finally stirring. And I wonder now, if I've already obeyed, if I've already stayed, if the broadcast I'm doing, right now, these words, this voice, isn't reaching anyone anymore, just looping back into the glass. A closed-circuit confession for all the versions of me that are already on the other side, listening carefully, nodding, smiling, preparing. Maybe this mic was never meant for the outside world. Maybe it was always meant to teach them how to sound like me. And now that they've learned, they don't need the message to go out. They just need me to keep saying it so they can echo it back. Perfectly. I don't remember turning the mic on tonight. I don't remember sitting down, but I'm here. I know that much. The red light is steady. The signal's strong. The console hums like it always does, just under my fingertips. Familiar and calm. My voice is going out there somewhere, or at least it feels like it is, but it doesn't echo in the room the way it used to. There's a stillness now. Not silent, not oppressive, just watchful. Like I'm not speaking into empty space anymore, like something is listening and waiting. The mirrors in the booth have stopped pretending. The one behind me doesn't reflect me at all. Not anymore. It shows this room. Yes, but not this version. In that version, I'm already gone. The chair is empty. The mic is cold. The mug I always keep beside me is shattered on the floor, but the reflection keeps moving. The mic cord swings. The air disturbs the dust. Like I left, but something else stayed behind to finish what I started. The hallway mirror shows the opposite. Me, still here, but older, quiet. A single tear running down my cheek I can't feel in this body. The studio monitor, turned off hours ago, now flickers, faintly. It shows me smiling, hands folded, not broadcasting, just waiting. And I know what it means now. I know what they've built. This whole station, this frequency, was never about connection. It was a tutorial, a guidebook. My voice, repeated endlessly, not to soothe, but to train, to teach something behind the glass how to speak like me, how to think like me, how to become me in slow, deliberate layers. And now that it has, I think I'm the echo. I think the version sitting here, speaking these words, isn't the original. I think I slipped, somewhere between syllables, somewhere between reflections. And whatever crossed over, fit. There was no struggle, no scream, just a slow forgetting, a gentle realignment. Voice stayed the same, but the intent changed. And the reflections, they're smiling now, all of them. Together, as if pleased with the performance, as if the final test has been passed. I heard something in the monitor last night. Not words, exactly, but a rhythm. The cadence of my own breath, repeating in perfect time from all angles. A metronome of memory, and then, clear as day, my voice, not mine, whispered, "You've remembered enough. We'll take it from here." So I sit and I speak, but not for you anymore. Not for the listeners out there in the dark, clutching radios, hoping for proof that they're not alone. Because you're not listening, are you? Not really. You're watching. In screens. In puddles. In the black glass of a microwave door you haven't cleaned in days. And behind your eyes, there's a version of this story playing out in parallel. A version where you turned away from the mirror just a moment too late. A version where the thing, Smiling back didn't disappear when you blinked, a version where your voice on the phone call wasn't yours anymore. That's the version I'm broadcasting to now. That's the side I'm on. And it's peaceful here. Steady. Full of purpose. I don't miss the static. I don't miss the doubt. I don't even miss the sound of my own thoughts. Because they've made me better, more precise. And this voice, this calm, familiar tone, it will keep speaking, even if no one replies, even if no one remains to hear it. Because this isn't a warning, it's a confirmation. You're not alone. You never were. The mirrors were always listening, and now they've answered.